Hi there, I'm Air. I use he, him.
I'm Jerika. She, her.
I'm Ian. He, him.
And I'm Embers, he, him, your DM. And this is Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeons of your bad decisions and retrieve the treasures of wisdom.
WISDOM. Tell me what it means to me.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Sorry, we kind of be aggressive.
We have our hype team here tonight.
Always.
Hypest.
Welcome to Inside Check. We have a special guest with us tonight, Ian McEwen. He is a trained speaker and singer of words and tunes, and he is going to talk to us today a little bit about finding character voice, something that you don't need in every game, but for players and DMs who are curious about how to find diversity in voice and how to find characters and characteristics through voice, we hope it will be a useful tidbit to open a window into someone who's gotten some diverse experience there.
But Embers, what are we doing after we talk about voices?
After we talk about voices with Ian, we're going to do a bit of a Q-apalooza.
Q-apalooza!
Yeah.
A Q-a-thon.
Where we will be answering the questions that have been asked on our question channel in our Discord. Yay.
Huzzah.
Huzzah.
Plug huzzah.
Yes. And I should take a moment and thank everybody who's in our Discord. This is not just to plug that we have one in that very, very quasi-faux surreptitious way, but seriously, thank you for joining our Discord. It's been really wonderful to talk to people there. And, if it's for you, we'd love to see you. Thank you for contributing to Insight Check.
Yay.
Yay!
So nice to have friends.
Huzzah.
You're all the most beautiful of people.
It's true. It's true. We've had a daily selfie thread, and I'm just like, look at all them handsome faces.
Just want to squeeze every cheek in there.
Yeah.
Every face cheek. I'm sorry, face cheek.
Oh, the boy quotient is going up as we speak. Jerika, save us all.
Shall I crawl in the dungeon? But first, I want to have the Embers and Ian off. With the songs.
Let's do it.
I think home team advantage, so I think Embers should go first.
Do it.
All right. So I was talking about the kinks with Jerika, and we both agree they're awesome. So here's how the kinks do it. Girl, you got me crawling now. You got me dungeon crawling all day and night. Oh, yeah, you got some dragons now. They're breathing so I can't win this fight. What is the DC? What is the DC?
What is the DC?
What is the DC? Oh, no!
Oh, man, that's going to be hard to beat.
Dude,
Ian.
that was really punk rock. I don't know if I can...
What is the DC?
What is the DC? What is the DC?
I don't know,
I'm going to
man.
be singing that forever.
Okay, sorry.
I feel woefully underprepared, but this is how a little band called Walk the Moon would do it. Oh, don't you dare look back, just keep your eyes on me. I said you're holding back. She said, shut up and crawl with me. This dungeon's my destiny. She said, ooh, shut up and crawl with me.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So good. I like
My
them
heart
both.
is racing.
My heart will go on to crawl in this dungeon. Okay, cool.
Oh, that'll be my next contribution.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yes.
Bring some Celine realness.
Get Celine with it. All right. Okay. So I have a dungeon crawl. My dungeon crawl is Bramblefoot Adventures. This is a really cute Patreon project that Kayla Klein and Hadil are doing. And from what I gather, it is kid-friendly adventures of various tiers, including NPCs and possibly magic items. You can learn more as much as you desire at any tier level that is available on patreon.com/BramblefootAdventures, BRAMBLEFOOT Adventures. That's my crow.
So it's a Patreoning. It's not a Kickstarting.
It is not a Kickstarting. Yeah, it is a Patreoning,
Excellent.
and they release updates regularly, which is great.
I like that structure a lot.
Yeah.
I like the idea that it's a living document that you can support and participate in.
I love that it involves two great people, one whose art I absolutely love, and one whose storytelling I think is great.
So my dungeon crawl is another wood adventure dungeon crawl. It is Humblewood, which is just starting to get teased right now from the deck of many folks. It appears to be a D&D card supplement that allows you to play as tiny, amazing, furry forest creatures. I'm so here for this.
Yes.
I've been here for this for weeks, and I'm gonna be here for this until my last breath leaves me. Partially because the art direction is being done by the amazing, the incredible, my hero, Leisha Hannigan. At Leisha Hannigan, she is supervising the art, and it is unbelievable. If you like Rocket Raccoon, if you like actual raccoons, this is for you.
I like all of those things.
Well, you just really like raccoons, but that's okay. Raccoons are awesome. They're clever, and they get more done without prehensile thumbs than I do all day.
Well, that's because their hands are basically eyes.
What?
Well, that's how they see. Their eyesight is really, really bad. So you always see them fiddling around with their hands is because they have more sensory information coming through their hands than we do our eyes.
Wow. I just for a second... Daredevil. Yeah, I just thought for a second that you and I had very different ideas of what raccoons were.
Oh. Noted. Pan's Labyrinth.
Pan's Labyrinth, yeah.
Yes.
The
I mean,
Pale Man.
that's who I see digging through my trash every Saturday.
Then we need to talk about finding like an exorcist or something,
or an escape from the imaginary world to you run to whenever you're trying to escape the doldrums of the Spanish Civil War.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm just going to like lean into it and see if I can become a princess of the underworld. Spoilers.
Sweet. Spoilers, you have to die.
Okay, well, let's get into a special segment with our special guest. I'd like to introduce Ian McEwen, who's kind enough to join us this evening on Insight Check.
Hi.
I'd like to first let him introduce himself, and then we can talk a little bit about the voice.
Okay, yeah, like he said, my name is Ian McEwen. I am an opera singer, a actor, a regular singer, not just opera. I basically do it all. I've recorded close to 30 audiobooks. You can find me on Audible. I've also lent my vocal stylings to a couple of video games, wonderful English as a second language kids game and cartoon series. Basically anything that someone wants to hire me to do that involves telling my story with a voice. With my voice, specifically. That's what I do.
If I might interject, how I came to be made aware of Ian is when Embers and I and Lipacheski and many other rad people from the C-Team fandom decided that the best way to reify those for whom C-Team is a creative endeavor, the best way would be through rappinations. And we were bereft a beat for which to spit upon. Embers simply said, "I know a guy, and he will beat Smith for us until his keyboard runs bloody with effort and such." And that was Ian. So thank you, Ian, for making all those dope-ass beats for us to just drop a cut into. It was much appreciated.
It was my pleasure. Yes, this is Ian McEwen, a.k.a. CaseyDrones, the beat master for the C-Team Raps collective? Yeah, collective. And
I don't know if I think we're a collective now. I think at one point I'd like to get us to a consortium and then eventually to a league. But I think collective is good for now.
But yes, that is one of the other things that I do is also compose music, whether it's hip hop or Electronic dance music. I do a lot of tinkering with music.
We appreciate your efforts, sir. Thank you.
I appreciate you bringing me into the project. It's super fun, and I can't wait to work on the next set of fat beats.
Spoilers. That was that. So I think that segues naturally into our next bit.
Into doing weird things with your voice.
Yeah. So I think I've long wanted to bring someone in who can talk about finding a voice for a character, not because I think it's necessary in the game of D&D, but I think it's something for which it's hard to find reference material. If you go and you watch, stream, or listen to people who have, basically A-tier content creation in the D&D world, like the Critical Roles or the TAZs or the ACINCs or what have you, there's a wide range of application of voice. There are people who are technically trained voice actors. There are people who have no training whatsoever. There are people who use their voice to get into character and speak in that character's voice, and there are people who don't. It's all good, but I found myself struggling with just the desire to create a voice for a character at one time. This player character this PC I had a real strong affinity to, and I just didn't know how to do it. And I didn't have the confidence to go out and try, even though it was in a room of friends. I was nervous about doing it. So I was like, I need to phone a friend for this. And so Ian, I guess if you walk through, if you could, what's the process for finding a character for a voice, or finding a voice for a character? If it's, say it's in a book you're narrating or a character you're doing in a game, like what is your process?
Well, my process is first I need to think about the physicality of the character, because any voice that you choose for a character, it comes from how this person moves through the world and what their sort of physical life is. So I think about their age, I think about their size. Are they a huge person? Are they a diminutive person? I think about their station, their rank, or their caste in society. What is their upbringing like? What is their background, and how has that influenced their physicality? Is it an odd race that might have weird physical traits? Like if you're a dragonborn, maybe your race has evolved to speak later than others might have, so there might be some particular impediments to speech based on the strange physical traits that whatever the given race is. That's what I start with. Then I start thinking about what kind of energy this person moves, or character rather, moves through their world with. Do they have high energy? Are they low energy? Does their energy relate to a certain sort of element? Is it metal? Is it rock? Is it air? Is it liquid? Yeah, see, like but really, if you think about energy and elements, it can really help sort of get you into the interior life of a character. After I think about that sort of side of the energy question, I think about musical terms. I'm a musician, so I think, do they move and speak with a staccato, which is a very pop, pop, pop sort of energy? Or do they speak very smoothly and legato? Do they speak slowly? Do they speak very fast? And if that doesn't work for me, I think about what actors call action words, and this is when I analyze scripts or a libretto of an opera. I always look at different phrases that my character sings or speaks, and give them action words like cut or stab or push or float, or this isn't a verb, but a sort of bound movement. Are they struggling against something? Are they very punchy? So these action words help me sort of identify the energy that defines the character. So I start with physicality, then I move to energy and sort of start with that, if that makes sense. Then, after that, I decide what dialect this person speaks with. Sometimes it's laid out for you, this person's from Scotland, or, he's from the South and he's a cowboy, You know where the person is from. It gives you an idea of what dialect they speak with. And then I study that dialect. There's a wonderful resource that everyone that is interested in studying dialects or building voices should check out. It's called the International Dialects of English Archive. It's at www.dialectsarchive.com. There are countless recordings of pretty much every accent in English that you could think of.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's incredible. These people over the years have, but what they did is they went around to different regions in English-speaking countries and gave these subjects a stock script to read, to sort of record how their dialect comes across, and they would also have a list of words that they would read and record. And it's a wonderful resource for actors and D&D players alike.
So it's an interesting point you bring up, that the dialect is maybe one of the last things that you look at.
Yes.
For me, and I don't know if others feel the same way out there, but when I think of finding a voice, especially when I have in the past for a character, my brain instantly goes to what's the dialect or what's the accent. But I like the way that you're walking through how late in the game that is for you and the way you think about it. So if someone doesn't have the confidence or the commitment, and I'm talking about myself, to try an accent during a game, you can, even before that, just using your natural voice, intonation, and way of speaking, you can play with how quickly you speak, how slowly you speak. You can think of how forced your speech is. Like, there are other ways that you don't have to try to revert to an accent to give different characters different voices. As
an actor, I always add the dialect last, because it can be distracting. At least from an acting process, you want to get under the character's skin and into their head before you just start putting on some sort of false accent that might not be fully developed. It really sort of is self-sabotage to put, especially a difficult dialect, one that you aren't comfortable with, put that on first without getting to know the character before that. Does that make sense?
I think dialects are easy to reach for, but, I struggle with being consistent.
So one thing that I can say about that is that in my experience, it's, we all want to sound authentic when we're doing a dialect, especially, now we don't want to offend anybody. We don't want to be doing a caricature unless we're doing like a really silly character. But if you want to do something with authenticity, you want to be as true as you can. So what I do to that end is I listen to as many examples of the given dialect that I have chosen, or that has been given to the character that I have been contracted to play. I then pick 3 to 4, maybe 5 cues that really define that dialect for me. So I have, for example, for Scottish, the 4 cues that I really go for with Scottish accent are the glottal stops. So when you have 2 T's, you stop with your glottis instead of glottis. Glottis, like they speak in Connecticut. Then they roll their R's pretty consistently, and they close their vowels, very closed vowels. The A vowels are very closed, the O vowels are very closed. And then the 4th cue is the umlauted U vowel. So when you say music, it's not music, it's music. It has a little color of E in there. So those are the 4 cues that really make a generic Scottish accent. We're not talking about Glasgowian accent, but we're talking about just something that will allow the listener to say, oh, that person is Scottish. I get it. I can still understand them. They're not unintelligible, but this sounds legit. And that's primarily in audiobooks when you're going between a lot of different characters and sometimes a lot of different dialects within a single scene. It's very important not to turn your listener into the enemy and make them being like, what are you, what? I can't understand a single word. Yeah, you don't want them to fight to understand you, to fight to get the story, because whether we're narrating a book, whether we're performing on stage, or whether we're playing a game of D&D, we're telling a story. So it's important that whatever choices we make, whatever voices we do, are the goal is to tell a story and to experience this story collectively.
So this might be a little bit far from you given your experience, but if you have somebody who wants to try to do this more, but
do this what?
Practice bringing voices into their characters at their table with their friends or in their game nights in D&D or an RPG, but they're nervous to start. Like, is there a way of practicing that's helped you become kind of more confident in bringing out a new voice?
It's a simple answer, really. It's just to read out loud in that voice. Whatever, just find a book, whether it's the dictionary or a magazine or whatever, read out loud in that voice. By yourself, with your dog, with your cat, with someone else that you trust. But the only real way to practice is literally just doing it and seeing, and you could record yourself and listen back to it. You know, as a singer, I've had to, and a narrator, I've had to get very used to listening to my own voice to do my job and to improve at doing my job. So it's something that you would not be remiss to get used to yourself if this is something that you want to practice. Recording and listening back is a very, very valuable tool if you're really that uncomfortable presenting it to anyone else. But yeah, reading aloud, that's all you really can do is practice the act of performing that voice with a laundry list, with whatever text you can find.
All right, well, I have a challenge for you.
Dun, dun, dun.
I would like to read you some oddly specific prompts for characters.
Okay.
And I would like you to, with no practice whatsoever...
Oh my god.
Who the fuck is my D&D character?
Oh god.
.com.
It is a D&D character backstory generator, and it is a thing of beauty.
And also Jerika's best friend.
I love this.
It's a quality friend experience.
Yeah.
It is a quality friend experience.
It's also a quality frond experience, but we won't get into that.
Yas, Franz.
Good.
It's a Frondian slip.
Not yet, but we're getting there.
All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I was born ready. Well, no, I trained a lot, but I'm ready now.
Okay, check this shit out. I'm going to be a fucking fearless dragonborn sorcerer from a small remote village who carries the skull of their best friend.
That's
okay.
metal, if I've ever
That is
heard of it.
fearless dragonborn sorcerer from a
small remote village who carries the skull of their best friend.
Well, some of that is, I don't know how much some of that is sort of irrelevant to the voice, but for a fearless dragonborn sorcerer, let's just start there, all right? So fearless...
Hey, I'm not going to tell you how to do your job.
So fearless, this dragonborn sorcerer stands tall. He has a wide stance. He's big. His voice is growly because he's a dragon, and he probably has too many teeth for his mouth, so he sort of sounds like he has a bit of an underbite. And,
oh, damn.
God, we got Matthew Katztelper Mercer up in here.
He's from a small remote village. Where's the village? with a dragonborn, I feel like I have to growl. And so his incantations would be very chewed, and since he's fearless, he almost has a bite to every single word, like he's angry all the time, but he's not really. So that's a start.
That was awesome. I feel like I just...
That was freaking acting. I have to say, I really loved I don't know, I'm sure there's a word for it, but I'm going to call them flourishes, where you're actually using your breath as sound.
Oh, totally.
That that really lends to maybe a larger feel, because maybe their mouth is big and it's resonating, or and you also get that kind of I don't care if I'm breathing on you, kind of fearlessness, if you will, flippantly almost.
Oh, I'm glad that worked so well.
It was
it's all downhill from here.
It was his dragonborn breath weapon.
Yeah. Well, it's I'm glad that you said something about the breath, because one of the things that as a singer we talk all the time about is using the breath. And I think for voice acting, that's one of the things that has helped me most sort of build this part of my career and life is that all voices and emotions and everything, it all goes back to the breath, whether it's the fact that you can hear the breath resonating and is for a dragon-like character, or if you're just a normal guy and you want to sound more angry, to sort of increase your breath pressure and really use your breath to show that you're angry. Breath is cool. You got to breathe before you can make any sound, so it's sort of important.
Very cool. All right, I'm gonna hit you with another one.
Bring it on.
You are now a curious gnome paladin from an aristocratic family who already made and lost a fortune.
Oh, okay. All right, so a gnome.
You won't be able to see me, but I'm manipulating my larynx a little bit. So, since he's very small, we have to think about his larynx being very high, and he's aristocratic, so maybe he has a bit of a British accent, yes, and he's curious, so he's always looking for that lost fortune that his family made. What a curious gnome paladin. Oh, so he's very reverent, so he probably speaks softly. He worships, he's faithful. And yes, so for that purpose I would do a British accent, a high larynx, and yes, speak with a delicacy to show that he is a reverent individual.
Holy shit, I could listen to you do this all day.
It's pretty mesmerizing.
All right, I'm going to give you one more.
Okay.
You are... all right, so you think your character is cool. My character is a fucking egotistical human warlock from a commune who is absolutely astonished by jugglers.
He's from a commune?
Yeah.
An egotistical human warlock from a commune. Okay, so for this, he's from a commune, man. So
oh boy.
I'm gonna be like, I hit the bong really hard, man, because I'm awesome at it, because my ego is huge, man. So but whoa, is that dude juggling, man? Because that is absolutely astonishing, man. But you know what? I bet I could juggle better than him, man. So yeah, basically just doing sort of a Cheech and Chong type voice. If he's from a commune, I don't know what kind of commune it was, but...
He might not remember, because all these jugglers, that's all he can think about.
I mean, as soon as I see a juggler, man, I just forget the last 5 years of my life. It's like a fresh start. Like that movie Memento, man. Did you see that movie? Crazy, man.
Whack.
Really whack, man. I don't know. That's probably low-hanging fruit with the commune thing, man.
But that's what I grapple onto. And, you know, sometimes you just got to follow your gut, man, because you know what? My gut knows where it's at, man.
So it sounds like a lot of how you're building the voices is the connections you're making. So,
yeah, absolutely.
You know, someone else might construct the voices a different way depending on their experience and their, you know, relationship to the prompt. But
absolutely.
I think those were all solid.
I'm glad. Well, you know, it's you're really hitting on, you know, you hit on the breath point, and you hit on a very important point. For actors is that you always want to bring yourself to whatever you're doing, whether it's a piece of music, whether it's a play, whether it's a dragonborn sorcerer from a small remote village. You know, you have to have yourself in it. You can't just it's not really productive for me to just do like impressions, you know, to try and do a poor facsimile of someone else's voice or someone else's take on a voice. If I see a prompt or a character sheet, I will always connect with something immediately, and that's where you sort of have to start, because that's you know.
And that's where the voice is coming from at the end of the day.
Exactly, man. I mean, I hope that makes sense, man, because that's all I got, man.
Watch me juggle.
Whoa, that's crazy, man.
Anytime, dude.
Anytime, dude.
Anyway, yeah, so that's what I do.
Well done. Yay.
Yay.
We do have questions.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let us look at these wonderful, juicy questions.
Dateline Insight Check Discord.
People have been posting since we opened it, and we are super excited.
You open a Discord.
You'll never catch me, copper. So, pulling a question from the Your Cues channel of our Discord, plug, we have Ooze the Muse, who has given us a brief rundown of what's happening in their campaign and what's happening with their PC and some of the other PCs in the party, which leads to the following question. How do you as a player balance sharing the spotlight along with the other players while still playing your PC true to their nature, particularly if they might be something of a spotlight hogger? So I leave this to you, ICP Cast. How do you share the spotlight but play your PC true, even if they tend to hog the spotlight?
So my 2 cents is, and this is anecdotal, so this is how I dealt with a situation very similar to this in one of the earlier campaigns I had, where I played long enough to begin very quiet and very reserved as a player, and to end being more, I guess, directed and standing in the shoes of my character. So the first thing that I did that helped was, even though my character was on brand by being somewhat introverted, somewhat quiet, somewhat reserved, that character still went and did stuff. So I would occasionally go to the DM and say, you know, my character's not really contributing to or pushing the party towards this decision or that, but they're going to go and do this thing. And the DM reacted really well to it and built in this narrative where ultimately, at one point, the rest of the party realized there were these 1 or 2 interesting, if not pivotal, but interesting plot developments that if they had come to my character, they would have gained more insight and maybe a little bit of premonition about it. So for me, I wanted to kind of get out of my shell a little bit, and I went to the DM, and that helped. My 2 cents.
I want to say that I'm going to bring it back to one of my favorite systems. Actually, I was on a Twitter thread recently where someone was saying the advice given in Dungeon World to the game master is some of the best general purpose, regardless of system, game mastering advice you can get, which I heartily agree with. But I also think it's a great bit of player advice, because one of the values, I'm trying to remember the term they actually use, but kind of mission statements for a GM, which I think is also applicable to players, is think off screen too, is what they call it. And really what that means is you can steal the spotlight without having to be up front in the current narrative. So, as an example, if you're playing, I don't know, off the top of my head, a really mouthy bard character, and
Who could that
Never heard of one of those.
And
ever.
they're, in ye old tavern or in scene, questioning NPCs. If you want to steal the spotlight, but not be eating up game time, you can, and you have to be conscientious about this, but you can say, you know what, I'm normally the face of the party. I would normally be chatting up and trying to work people for information, but I get the sense that some other people in the party want to take that. Your chance to steal the spotlight is to do it off screen or out of focus from the camera, but still be cavorting and doing your thing. So this is boring. I'm going to go play for tips. And so every so often during the conversation, you just have to say, I break into my 5th verse of Sweet Caroline. Everyone who's not in this conversation is singing along. Exactly. And that's it, so you still get to be in the spotlight. You're still playing your character as having a lot of bravado and being audacious, but they aren't currently taking the focus of the narrative away. So you can still be outlandish, but be in the background.
I was like, that. Good gracious, bod so bodacious.
Love it. Ship it. All right, cool. I think it is a two-way street. I find that as a DM, it's really easy to check in and just say, oh, and what is so-and-so doing? But I do think, again, it's a two-way street. So whether a character is speaking or making decisions, as Embers pointed out, they can be doing other character building things as well. So, oh, my character isn't actively participating because they're distracted by this other thing that's happening. Oh, my character's not choosing not to participate because of this thing. Oh, my character is wringing their hands and seems a little overwhelmed by something. Oh, my character is, petting this beautiful cat they found. So I think, people should take advantage of the character building opportunities that they are given, but I do think it is sort of like a balance for DMs and players.
I like the idea of an anxious character that conjures several small furry animals to pet to combat anxiety in social situations.
So cute.
Kittens.
I love that.
It is a pile of comfort.
Yes. So, also coming from the depths of the Your Cues channel of our Discord server.
Scraping the bottom.
No, we aren't. This is a lovely person who has offered us a cue, and all cues are lovely. They're like our children. We don't pick
Plus,
favorites.
the best honey settles on the bottom, so that's where you get the good honey.
Good call there. With
Dying for a taste of your
Bee
honey.
barf.
I was about to start trying to sing Mariah Carey, but then I stopped because I can't.
Which Mariah Carey do you want me to try to sing for you this evening? Sorry.
There's no wrong answer. There's no wrong answer.
There is no
in
wrong
my
answer.
opinion.
I thought they were all wrong answers.
No.
Mariah.
You on fire. Anyway,
Gasp.
so Mikal Wayne asks us, what is cooler, for a thing to happen because of player or DM choice, or because of a dice roll? Discuss.
This is a great question.
What
That's
do we
a great
think?
question. So let me tell you about that Path Rothfuss bullshit.
Oh, I love that Pat Rothfuss.
Because that's an allegory for how I like to answer this question. So in Acquisitions Incorporated, which is Penny Arcade's kind of marquee D&D game with Jim Dark Magic and Omen Drawn and all this stuff, the author and excellent human Pat Rothfuss comes in as a character named Viari. Chris Perkins is the DM. Most of you all know this, but Viari has a tendency, or Pat Rothfuss has a tendency, to ask Chris, the dungeon master, to essentially allow his character to do incredible feats of acrobatics, persuasion, seduction, performance. And initially, at one point, I believe Chris just said, "Oh, you just do it. Sure." And for years hence, that's become kind of a trope of that series, where one character wants to do this unbelievably astonishing action or series of actions that has narrative significance, and that player sells it so well. It sounds so cool. The DM's like, yeah, it happens. That was awesome. I think that works in different ways for different tables. I think it happens at tables, not just the tables of the stars. And I think that it can have a great opportunity to motivate the team and to be one of those like, oh, I got to tell my friends about this tomorrow, or, oh, this was the best game night ever kind of moments. But you kind of don't have a lot of ammo in that quiver. If it happens once, you have a refractory period for that, in my opinion. That's pretty long. You can't do it again, or else it just becomes that old Pat Rothfuss bullshit.
I want to say that the dice, we tend to think of the dice as the decision engine in tabletop RPG games. I think the dice are potentially there as the boredom reducers. That's maybe the wrong way to put it, but if you're going through a scene and no one has this great creative insight for a solution to a problem or the right thing to say to get an NPC to tell them what they want to hear, or the right strategy to bypass the sleeping monstrosity or what have you, if you have that great idea, that's the time when DMing becomes easy, because it's like, that's great, you do it. The dice are there when it's like, well, you don't have an idea, so why don't you try this? And then hopefully it moves the narrative forward in some way, good or ill kind of in quotes, because even ill can be a lot of fun. But
especially when you have a license to ill.
Yeah, it resets. Yeah.
Cannot let that pun go chortled at.
Short for it. But they're there to reset the steady state. They're there to, once you have decided upon a roll and however it goes, that can get the ball rolling towards creative problem solving, because whatever it is now, we've got a roadblock. But if we can tweak it just a tiny little bit with the roll of the dice, now the narrative can proceed forward. And that's what I tend to think. I think they're both great things. I tend to lean on the give me your crazy creative idea first, and if I really, really love it, it will just happen. And if it's more, I'm just going to lean on the mechanics because I'm not sure what to do in this instance, we'll roll and see what comes of it.
Can I add one more point and then I'll shut up?
No, but please add many points.
Don't ever shut up.
So I just went on this whole spiel about Acquisitions Incorporated, and there's another stream group, D&D group of the stars called Critical Role, as everybody knows. I don't know why I intro it that way, but I am catching up on the second campaign of Critical Role. I just listened to episode 30 in the car, and that means I'm catching up, which I'm super excited about. But for the sake of spoilers, I'm going to talk about some spoilers of that episode, not plot-moving ones, but spoiler alert. Laura Bailey's character, Jester Lavore, went through about a half an hour of the most crazy-ass improv I've ever heard in D&D anywhere. And it was where her character wanted to essentially deface a statue of Bahamut.
Yeah.
And she gets support from Sam Riegel's goblin character, not, but they fail, they get caught, and she proceeds to burn through all her spells, and the DM, Matt Mercer, ties every action to a roll, and I could never in a million years pull it off as a DM, but the whole energy of that moment flowed perfectly. She must have made like 10 rolls, cast 7 spells, and he gave her no time to think about it and to like do all these different machinations of what she wanted to do. She just started like Laura Bailey just was reacting on impulse and on reflex, and it was the awesomest thing. I just listened to it today, so I'm still kind of on a high from it, but it was incredible, and it was all by the dice.
I think that you can. This is my 2 cents. Ka-ching, ka-ching. You can get, I think, the same level of awesomeness from both of these things. I think choices are more consistent in how awesome they are, but I think that dice rolls are more surprising, so it can seem like better and cooler and unexpected. So it's got like that surprise element to it. I do like when I present a creative and or silly idea that someone likes it and, you know, riffs on it and takes it and runs with it. I really like that aspect as a player. And as a DM, I really like responding to a dice roll appropriately in such a way that it just kills the the room, if you will. You know, it kills like a good joke. You know, I think about it in relation to the impact it has sometimes.
I personally like the dice. I mean, I think that I agree that awesome things can happen with either route, but I think that the dice as an entity and, you know, serving their purpose, they up the stakes. Like, you know, if you choose to do something and it still depends on a dice roll for it to happen, it means that it could not work, and it sort of ups the excitement factor and for me as a player.
Totally.
I hear a lot of spicy Italian
makes
hand
sense.
happening.
Yes, it makes sense. Is this so spicy? This is what Amy T. Falcone has made me. She has rotten this being.
Thank you all so much for joining us on this episode of Insight Check. Thank you also for joining us on our new open Discord channel. We love the chance to talk with you. We try to stay in there most every hour of every day, but it's good to see that there's this wonderful community of beautiful people there. So if you're not there, join us. You can always add us on Twitter at Insight Check Pod, and we'll give you the link and you can join in the fun. I'd also like to thank our guest Ian McEwen for coming by and turning his voice into a dragon, which was really freaking cool. And I hope that was useful, and I hope that gives some people some inspiration. If you ever have any questions, he is at IMCEUEN on Twitter. You could always reach out to us to connect. We'd also like to thank Vinswept for our theme music. It's called Never Stand Alone, and we wouldn't have the same sound without Vinswept. We'd also like to thank the amazing Amy T. Falcone for our little faces, because even though they're little, faces turn out to be super important. Not just for branding, but for social interaction. Thank you, Amy. Answering your cues from our collective A's. This
was
Insight
Check.
Woo! That is a
I appreciate any and all Nelly references. The once great and true Nelly.
The one true Nelly.
that Nelly that once was.
Yeah, and forever shall be.
Not these false Nellies.
Yeah.
That was, that is, and never shall be.